2, 3. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday morning at Spiritual Life Center. Say hello to your neighbor.
In the right place.
We're going to be doing some great music all day with Carol
Y'all know
Manson.
how to do this.
We got Victor Sparks up here on keyboards. You're in the right place.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
Soul is welcome.
Your soul.
Everybody turn around and say hello to everybody that we're streaming to at home.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here, y'all. My soul is welcome right here, yeah. My soul is welcome here. My soul, my soul is welcome right here, y'all. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
All right. Good morning. Good morning, Heather. Good to see you this
Spiritual
morning.
Life. Good to see you, Reverend James
Yes.
Trapp, for those of you who don't know. And we have some special guests today, of course, Carol Manson, who woke you up just now, right? We also have Victor on the keys while Paula is flying off to Zambia as we speak. So it's now our honor to welcome you in the name of all that is sacred, all that is holy, all that is good, and in the warm and loving spirit of this ministry, Spiritual Life Center. And if this is your first time here in the sanctuary or your first time online watching us on your laptop, we want to especially welcome you. This might be a new experience for you, but we know there's something special for you today. And we know that all of us are here not by accident, but by divine appointment. So thank you for keeping your appointment. And now this is the part of the service where I say something really clever or pithy to get you to turn off your cell phones. I got nothing. Just please check your pockets, check your purses, and turn off those cell phones.
So that somebody's about to say something back to you, I thought. All right.
Don't you dare.
Maybe I was in my mind only. Let us connect with that presence now that we create that pure, uncluttered, direct line to the Spirit of God. We remember that we're living and moving and having our being in this awesome presence. And although we cannot put it in words that would adequately describe it, we know that we can sense it by its effects on us when we think about the qualities of this presence. And so we bring in the peace, the divine and perfect love, the perfect order, health, wholeness, harmony, and oneness, and make the activity of our awareness and reinforce it with the thoughts that we have, the words that we speak, the actions that we take, so that we are radiating from the depths of our being the truth of who and what we really are, regardless of what the appearances are, regardless of what we may be falsely thinking about ourselves. We only see that we are heirs to the Spirit of God itself and have every quality that it possesses. So we're thankful to be the vessels and vehicles of this presence as we go forth multiplying the all good. And as we do, we can say, when you see me, you see the presence from which I have come. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Amen.
And of course, we've been affirming each week the principles that we believe in that guide Unity's philosophy. And so if someone asks, well, what are the principles of unity? We will say the following. So I invite you to simply repeat them with me. God is absolute good and everywhere present. People are inherently good. Thoughts create our experiences. Prayer and meditation are how we connect with God. We must take action.
Now, coming up on Wednesday, we have a way to take action and connect with prayer and meditation. The WOW service will be Own Your Personal Power meditation. It's going to be led by Reverend Deborah Phillips, and it's going to be based on James' talk from today, which is Jesus and the Temptations. You remember that group from the 60s? They were great. So Deborah's going to help you with guided meditation to tap into your own spiritual power. So as always, salad is at 6 and the service starts at 7.
And our transformational partners have been contributing to organizations, part of our local community that are making a difference in people's lives. And today we want to highlight the Way Ministries, which provides outreach and support to those with addictions, those experience homelessness, and others with limited emotional as well as social support. And there may be here, they are the May recipients of our gift. And we have Rhonda Sandoval, who's here to tell us more about the Way Ministry. So welcome, Rhonda.
Good morning. Or should I say early afternoon, huh?
Yes. It's morning somewhere, so you're never wrong.
I want to thank everybody for contributing to our cause. I want you to know that we take our job very seriously, that it is a divine appointment for us to help people. We have a food ministry and we have a recovery ministry. Our food ministry prepares a box of food for each family that should feed them for about a week. And last year, we fed over 1 million meals for these families. But that's just a little part of what we do. We also help bring the homeless off the street and the recovering addicts. We give them a place to call their own, a family-like environment. So I brought a few friends with us today. I brought my house manager, who has 2 years clean and sober. And one of our success stories, Shane. Thank you for coming today. I would like to share our motto with you today. So kind of like your guys's, we have our own little entourage or our own little thing that we say. So number 1 is forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for all the pain and misery you caused while you were in your addictions. 2, God's timing. God's timing is perfect and works in perfection every time. Let recovery happen in His time, not your own. 3, become a giver, not a taker. When we are in our addictions, we steal more than things. We steal love, joy, affection, peace, and harmony. When we make the turn, we become a giver, giving of ourselves, encouragement, and all good things. And last but definitely not least, restoration. Restoration happens when we get through the first 3 pillars. Families and friends are restored, husbands and wives, children and parents, brothers and sisters. So we want to thank you guys for partnering with us to help restore these families. Again, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhonda. God bless.
So, exciting news. We have another Mystic Cafe coming up in September. And this event will feature Kohaku and the Edo Ensemble. And we have a little video that's going to tell you all about it, or show you all about it. Coming soon to a theater near you. Here we go.
All righty.
So as you can tell by that lovely video, this is going to be a spectacular Mystic Cafe. This is something that Paula has put together with some friends of hers. The group is called Kohaku, these two lovely ladies. During the show, they have 5 or 6 costume changes. And in the costume changes, you'll be entertained by the Edo Ensemble using flute and traditional Japanese string instruments. So combined, it's just an amazing opportunity. And when you arrive at the Mystic Cafe, you first arrive to the courtyard, and the courtyard will be beautiful. There'll be Japanese finger foods and appetizers. There'll be plenty of mingling. Wine and sake will be available. And then you go into the Mystic Cafe. Now, today we're announcing ticket sales, so this is our early bird special. If you buy your ticket today, then you'll be given early access into this room to find your seat. So that's our early bird special. When the show's halfway over, we go out to the courtyard again, mingle with friends, new friends, and we have a wonderful dessert reception. And then we come back and finish up this magical evening. We have had 7 Mystic Cafes. All of them have sold out. This is our 8th Mystic Cafe. This one will sell out very quickly. So look at your calendar, buy your ticket this week and hopefully next week. You're in for a wonderful treat that Paula and Ira are putting together. I call them now the Mandelas, the M&M Productions, and they're going to do a spectacular job. So let's all buy our tickets. The 5th step that we talked about earlier is we must take action. Take action today, and you'll be glad that you did.
Thank you, RJ. And another action you can take today is just participate in National Ice Cream Day. The youth department is having an ice cream social for the kids and their parents. And we want to thank Carol Manson. She's the sponsor of providing the ice cream for us. So thank you so much, Carol. And that'll be right after our service today. And we want to acknowledge our ambassadors, any board members that are here, and our prayer chaplains. And if they would stand, we can acknowledge you. And the ambassadors are wearing the rainbow ribbons, and they are really special hospitality individuals here for us. and they can greet you and direct you to the places that you may want to find out about, answer questions that you may have, and just be a wonderful presence for all of us here at Spiritual Life Center. And our Board of Trustee members that are present are wearing the purple ribbons on their name badges, and they're here to they help guide and really set the direction and where we're heading as a community overall, our strategies and policies. And so we thank them for their work, the consciousness, and the time that they put in to really keep us moving forward. And then, of course, our prayer chaplains that do the very important work of holding that prayer consciousness for our community as a whole and for you as individuals. So if you're going through a challenge or have a joy that you just want to leverage up to the next level, they're available to pray with you right after the service in the courtyard. So we thank them for what they bring to our community. So thank you, chaplains, for your work.
And now, if you're here for the very first time, in just a minute, we're going to ask you to raise your hand. But we really want you to know about all the opportunities there are to connect with this community. First, check out your bulletin. We've got all sorts of events in there that we didn't have time to announce. Also, you can go to slcworld.org and check out our calendar of events and different ministries that we have. And then also, we'll be coming around with a card. If you just fill out that card, you can either drop it in the offering basket, or you can take it out to the welcome table, and if you do that, you get a gift. Yeah. So you might want to do that instead with your card.
So with that being said, anyone here for the very first time, just raise your hand. Any first-timers here this morning? Yes, keep your hand up nice and high. Thank you very much for your presence. And we're bringing you a purple ribbon, and we just invite you to wear that on the left side of your being and near your heart, so we can give you that special Spiritual Life Center greeting and welcome. And we thank you for your presence and this is how you're bringing your energy, your consciousness, your divine essence to our spiritual community. And so at this time, we have an opportunity not only to greet anyone that's here that's new, that's near you, but to greet each other and say, you are marvelous. Glad you are here today.
Sure.
Why don't we do a little bit of that? Y'all okay with that? Now look here. I'm gonna sing this song once for you, and then you on your own after that. You know. Here we go. I'm gonna sing here again. Everything that I need to know about what lies before me. Everything that I need to know about what lies before me is available to me. Now it's available to me through the mind of God within me. Join me. Everything that I need to know about what lies before me. Everything that I need to know, I know about what lies before me is available to me. Now it's available to me through the mind of God within me. Everything that I need to do about what lies before me. Everything that I need to do about what lies before me is available to me. Now it's available to me through the mind of God within me. Everything that I need to release it's available to me through the mind of God within me. Everything that I need to accept about what lies before me, everything that I need to accept about what lies before me is available to me. Now it's available to me through the mind of God within me, through the mind of God within me, through the mind of God within me.
Wow. So as we move into the quieter time of our service, we embrace the shadow and light that we carry within us by saying the words that are on our cue card that we have been doing for the last couple of years. And let's say that together. Please have compassion for us when we are being not enough, distrusting, grieving, blaming, powerless, fearful, because this is who we have come here to be, inspired, in integrity, joy-filled, compassionate, unstoppable, generous, transformational. And let's embody all of that in our vision statement. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions. Weaving spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom, we cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet. And let's just take a breath and move into our meditation chant.
In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough hope and quite enough power to walk through every fear. For spirit, one spirit is in this very room. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough hope and quite enough power to walk through every fear. For spirit, one spirit is in this very room. Is in this very room. Oh, is in this very, very room.
take a nice deep breath. Let it go. And then just begin, allow yourself to breathe naturally. And with each breath, you relax just a little bit more. Letting your shoulders drop. Relaxing your eyelids. Letting your hands come to rest in your lap. And as you breathe so easily and carefree, you begin to feel lighter and lighter until your consciousness drifts up into a light daydream. In this daydream, you are in a place where your wildest dreams and goals can roam free. You can pick and choose what you want to do, how you want to be, where you want to go. And it seems as if you can do this with no repercussions. You can just let it all go. And so it's the perfect place to ask for the gift of your heart's desire. And so you close your eyes and you simply say a prayer. Show me. Give me that very special gift that will make my dream come true. As you open your eyes then and look around, you notice a small table in the shade of a large tree. And there's a sign on the table that says, as you reach for your highest goals, you must take responsibility for the choices you make and the consequences they create. And then in parentheses it says, choose a gift to take with you. And there's a little green arrow pointing down towards the base of the tree. And there are 2 items sitting there. A beautiful gold box. And it shines and glitters even in the shade. And the other, a very small package wrapped in brown paper that's tattered. It's tied with a very tight knot. And that gold box is so beautiful. And you think that must contain the answer. That must contain my heart's desire. So the choice is obvious, and you pick up the golden box. As you lift the lid, glitter begins to flake off everywhere. The lid starts to fall apart in your hands. And when you look into the box, you see that it is empty, except for a bunch of loose glitter and maybe some pieces of the lid. And then the box itself simply falls apart in your hands. You're surrounded by a mess of cardboard and glitter. It sticks to your hands and your clothes. It's like, what a disappointment. I think I made the wrong decision. Now I have nothing. And you're so disappointed, you want to get up and just walk away. But you think better of it and you turn to clean up your mess. And because this is a daydream, a broom, a dustpan, and a wastebasket are near at hand. As you clean the area and dust yourself off, you begin to feel a little bit better. At least you didn't leave this for someone else to fix. And that feels good. And then, as you're cleaning, you notice the small, messy brown package is still under the tree. Oh, do I get a second chance, you think? And so you walk over and pick up the package now. The string just easily slips off. You don't have to untie the knot. And the paper just comes right off. And as you open this little small box, inside is the very special gift that only you will recognize. And when you open the box, you see it, and you bring it up to your heart center and absorb this gift into your heart. And you are so filled with gratitude and love, and you sit and absorb this gift in the silence. And you take a breath and you have the realization that whatever gifts you have come from within, and that all the glittery gold boxes in the world are not where the answer lies. And in gratitude, you take a breath or two as you begin to return to your physical bodies and receive this blessing. Oh, my beloved, you have done well. You took responsibility. You stayed the course, and your next steps are clear. As you reach for your highest goals, and you take responsibility for the choices you make and the consequences they create, your path will be clear and free, and you are blessed. Remember this always.
In the silence, there is peace. In the silence, there is unspoken joy. In the silence, there is release from a world full of chaos and noise. So I wait for these precious moments when I hear all that could never be said, and right here in this holy silence I find God. I find myself. In the silence, there is peace. Y'all. In the silence, there is unspoken joy. these precious moments when I hear all that could never be said, and right here in this holy silence, I find God. I find myself. Victor Sparks. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, Victor, and the Soul Light Connection. God, sometimes when sometimes when you hear music, it kind of stirs up the gift of God within us. So stirs up something within us. You know, between the services, I was talking with Paul, the bass player, and we were talking about how we stay in the moment, stay really present. And we had some, ideas. Well, nobody ever stays there all the time. But one thing that helps is when you get into some music, it's almost like you forget everything. You're just right there. And if you really want to get into it, do it like I do sometimes when I'm in the house by myself and nothing else is going on. I blast the music real loud and I just start dancing like nobody's watching. I'm really in the moment at that time. Well, I was in line with our theme for the month. I was speaking about I think I mentioned time I had a person come to me and said they were really afraid of the Bible. We don't really use a whole lot of Bible as in Spiritual Life Center or services, but we have a unique perspective on it in Unity. And I had no idea that people actually had that relationship with it, that there was actually fear of it. And others have rejected it outright because it's been weaponized and used to, justify some atrocious actions in history, whether it's slavery, subjugation of women, and condemnation of homosexuality. And I remember one time I was with a person who was sharing a lesson and had a Bible in his hand and decided to take the Bible and just throw it down on the ground. And nobody died. Everybody was okay. It's a book. And the words come through individuals over time that has some lessons. But we were going through this theme this month of the Bible and metaphysics, seeking to demystify some of the stories in the Bible and look at them from what we call a symbolic or metaphysical perspective, because I think this is our unique contribution in New Thought. We look at it not as literal history, although there's history in it. Rather, we look at it from a perspective of what is it telling us about our own spiritual growth, our own spiritual development, our own consciousness. So we've been looking at a few stories to help aid us in this, and we started out with Adam and Eve and the fall, and realized that the setbacks that we have is an opportunity for us to grow. And then we looked at the story of Peter walking on the water and being guided by the Christ presence to do it himself, and how he sank. And sometimes we may sink because we're not keeping our eye on the presence, but being distracted by the distractions around us. And so today we're looking at a story in which Jesus goes into the wilderness. You know, I call it the Jesus and the Temptations. I was going to have some dance moves, sing a little few Temptation songs. I heard it through the grapevine, But anyway, he goes into the wilderness. And this is before he's embarking upon his purpose and his ministry. And he's there for 40 days and he's 40 nights. And he prayed and he fasted. And he meditated during this time. And oftentimes when you read some of the stories in the Bible, whether it's the Hebrew Bible, where you read about Moses taking the people to the promised land, and they're in the wilderness for 40 years. Or you read about the time of Noah and the ark, and it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And in this time, he's meditating in the wilderness for 40 days. 40 often represented a time that it takes for something to be completed, for completion to take place. So we here have Jesus completing the preparation before starting his public ministry. And he was baptized by John the Baptist, not because he had to repent for anything, but rather it was his public declaration, his public intention to enter his active purpose. And he had a water baptism that represented the cleansing of his mind, cleansing of his consciousness, that opened him up to spiritual illumination and insight. It was represented by the dove that flew around, which really represents peace and creating a new life. And so he announced to everyone who would listen our identity as well as his identity and who we really are when he said, we are our beloved in which we are well pleased by this presence. Understand, we realize in RT that Jesus was not God walking on earth for a while, nor was he in himself interested in guru worship. There's one time there's a statement in which they started talking to him and said, good master. And he said, no, why callest me good? There's only one good, and he would say that is the presence of God itself. But what he represents and symbolizes within us is the highest and best within humankind. He symbolizes the Christ, which is that part of God within all of us. It is the I am that is within all of us, and it represents our potential, our possibilities. So after the baptism, he realized that his purpose was here to be here for God more than anything else. And he said, I was led to go into the wilderness, and while he was there doing his prayer and his meditation, purifying his mind, they said in those stories that he was tempted by the devil, Satan. Somebody said that, what did the minister talk about today? He talked about Satan. Well, what do you have to say about it? That he was against it. Let's let that sink in for a moment. Anyway, but Satan was not a dude opposing God. Jesus spoke Aramaic. In the Aramaic language, Satan simply means crazy thoughts, crazy ideas. And temptation does not mean an enticement to do wrong. It's simply opportunity to prove that we can accept, it's prove that we can have illumination, to prove that we can master our thoughts. Because with this illumination comes a new and wider set of ideas and circumstances that we can make part of our life. So he set out with his intention. And understand that whenever we set out of a pure intention for our life, oftentimes when we're going off how we've always done things, all the things unlike that will start to show up. I don't know about you. I decided, one day, I'm just going to start eating healthy. I'm just not going to eat all that sweet stuff that I like. And I said, the first day I get out there, I'm feeling good about it. And then all of a sudden, somebody brings me a huge slice of double chocolate cake. Why now? At this moment, as soon as I'm getting started. It kind of reminded me of a story about, some ministers gotten together for a celebration, and one of the persons there got him, got his own meal, and he got him a huge milkshake and pizza with extra cheese on it and double banana split. And he started, the prayer, and he said, I gather up and cast out the fat and calories of this meal in the name of the Lord. And then the angels put his hand on his shoulder and said to him, Such calories and fat can only be cast out through prayer and fasting, my friend. But he just set out his intention. Devote himself to a higher truth. He had to rise above, his own personal ego, his unspiritualized ego. So he was fasting for 40 days, and he was fasting from the demands of his ego, he was fasting from the demands of his personal way of seeing life. And then the highly charged thoughts began to come in. The crazy ideas started to come in. The low vibration comes in that sometimes we may get bombarded with when we hear about news of supposedly important people or Hollywood celebrities, and all the drama that's gone on, and think that's life. But he was fasting only in the thoughts of God. And he knew that you couldn't serve two masters, for you can love one and just hate the other. So he was reminding us in those stories that we can't serve God and mammon. We can't serve God and the ego. We can't serve God and have this sense of connection. We have to choose what direction we're going to go. It's like, what really brought this to mind was that there's a Russian proverb that I think is a Russian proverb because somebody from Russia told me about it. But he put it in this perspective. You can't put a butt on two toilet seats. It's just impossible. You got to choose one. I know I got a weird, but those images help me understand. Choose which one. And if you choose one, you'll be the master of your soul. You'll choose the lighter divinity that's within you. You'll serve that divine master. So Jesus brings us this example of that possibility. And he was fasting for 40 days, and he was dissolving any sense that he was separate from the presence of God. And then some temptations flowed up. And temptations mean suggestions, these other distractions that try to pull us away from that truth. And in that story, it says that Satan came to visit him, and those crazy thoughts began to visit him. Thoughts from the lower part of us, below the line, as I think Gary had talked about a few weeks ago or a couple months ago. So here Jesus was fasting and praying and retooling his spirit. And he was in tune with his purpose, vibrating with his mission. And those crazy thoughts came. The thought came through that said, yo, Jesus. This is where Rocky got that idea when he said, yo, Adrian, in Rocky. Started out with those crazy thoughts of, yo, Jesus, I know we know what you're doing here. You've been fasting, you've been praying. I know you're kind of hungry. Why don't you just go ahead and turn this stone into bread? Nobody's looking. You can just say you fasted for 40 days and nights. It's a good public relations material, but you can turn it into bread. And those crazy thoughts were urging him to try to use his power to do that. And the temptation and the suggestion floated through, and ultimately he was in tune with the power and the presence of God. And he said, get behind me, crazy thinking. Because I'm not meant to live by bread alone. Human beings are not to live by bread alone, not the material, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. And what he meant was that we're not here just to live by what we can see. We're not here just to live by what is visible to us. Because the real power is that which we cannot see. It's the most powerful thing that we can turn to. And in that moment, he did that. And he rose above his ego to attach to the material to give him satisfaction. Because oftentimes in our human life, we think that something outside of us will give us that satisfaction. If I only had this, I'd be happy. If only I had that, I'd be happy. All those incessant things that move through our mind that are constantly bombarding us, coming at us. If we smelled like this, if I had this, if I owned this, we seek to find satisfaction in the external. And so it kind of reminded me as, the way ministry was and the work that they're doing. Because I was realizing that for myself, that next month, August the 10th, I remember that, is my 32nd year of sobriety for myself. Because I remember during that time, I was looking for things outside of me to give me satisfaction. To think that it had to be some substance that gave me satisfaction. And so I know, remember, it used to be a time I used to go to happy hour on Friday. And, I was mentioned earlier that Then happy hour became Thursday and Friday. And then happy hour became Thursday through Friday. And then I said, just make it every day, just make it happy hour. And that was my demise after a certain point until I had my own revelation. Sometimes we look for those things outside of us to give us satisfaction. Sometimes it's material. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I remember a friend of mine, he used to buy a lot of clothes. And he was looking through his closet one day and he realized he had bought something that was still in the bag, had been there for months. He just bought it because he thought at that moment it was going to give him satisfaction. So Jesus is out there fasting and he's praying. And he said to himself, when that gratification came up that he could get something outside of him, get behind me crazy ideas, there's another vibration that I can tap into. So he got past that distraction. Thought it was behind him, fasted some more, but the egoic mind came back. The lower vibration came back and said, Jesus, I got a plan for you. This will really look good on your resume. I want you to go up to the highest pinnacle of the temple, and I want you to throw your body down and prove that you are the favorite son of God, and prove that the angels will prevent you from hurting yourself when you come down. I got to say to him in so many words, I got some awesome stuff for you, Jesus. You will have you all over the world. We'll make you famous. You get all kinds of endorsements if you do this. And Jesus said, I won't be tempted by this presence, by these ideas. The moment he overcame that sense of separation from God by trying to latch on to outside things, he moved beyond the self, the thing that sometimes we all have that says, look at me, I've done it all, how great I am. Look what I've accomplished. Look at the things I've done in my life. Look at all the stuff I've got. Look at what I did. Look at me. It's like sometimes you're in a conversation, you may have heard about this. The person was talking with another person and said, let me stop talking about me. How about you talk about me? But it's still about me, along the way. In that moment, Jesus overcame any self-aggrandizement, the desire to show off and say, look at me, I'm the greatest, I'm the best. And in that moment, he retooled his attention to the power and the presence and the love. He realized his oneness with God. He was moving right along, but that egoic part came back and said, you haven't been listening. I got a really great plan for you. If you just bow down and give your power over to I'll give you power over the whole world. And he showed him a picture, a total control of the world. And ultimately he said once again, get behind me. I worship only the presence of God. He was getting rid of those crazy thoughts so he can stay present with that power that is always with him. He was letting us know a way that we can get rid of those negative thoughts that come to us from time to time. They always kind of pop up. And that's by doing this. You know how to get rid of negative thoughts? When they start coming up, you start seeing them, you just say, get out of here. Now, if you want to use some more choice words, you can do that to get them to leave. Just do that. I remember there was a time that I was with a friend who had the ability to channel entities. And I don't share this with everyone because they look at you like you, okay. Going a little cuckoo there, James. But, I saw this with my own eyes, witnessed with my own ears, that they could channel these entities. And at one point, the person was actually speaking a language that they did not understand at all. They never studied it, didn't know anything about it. And, we recorded it. And the person wanted to have these entities stop coming through them. And we happened to have the opportunity to speak with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Brian Weiss. And he wrote a book called Many Lives, Many Masters. And he was an individual who would take people through regression therapy, and not only till they were children, but through a past life. And we asked him, and they asked him this question: how can you stop these entities from coming into this person? And the person, and Brian Weiss said, you just tell them, don't come back, and they won't. And the person told them, don't come back, and they didn't come back. So the same way, so I know that's a little weird story, but I got some weird things that happen in my life from time to time, different. I don't say it's weird, just different. And it changed my perspective on a lot of things, had me believing things that I didn't necessarily know about before. But anyway, to get rid of those thoughts, we just say, just don't come back. Anyway, Jesus said, get behind me. And in that moment, he broke his bond of any sense of separation from God. He rose above his ego. He rose above any need for self-gratification or aggrandizement or personal power over people. And he came to realize there was only one power, and that power is in all of us. And it's something wonderful and magnificent begins to take place when we stay there. We begin to check ourselves of these three temptations and say, get thee behind me, and understand that we do live by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. And what he's talking about are really the qualities of God, the qualities of peace, the qualities of oneness, the qualities of harmony, the qualities of wisdom, the qualities of health and harmony, and all that's good and perfect. You know, the Course in Miracles talks about there's only really two qualities that we can fall under. One is love, the other one is fear. You know, which one are we going to choose? If we choose love, that will transmute into our life experience. We'll begin to operate from that sense of oneness with these qualities and live by the word that comes out of the mind of God. And it'll transform our life. You know, if we practice one of these qualities, one of them which being gratitude, it'll begin to create a whole different experience for us. If we begin to focus on that. There was a gentleman who had a job that he said he hated, really hated the job. He hated the people there. And one of his advisors said, well, if you want to try to change that around, start writing down the things that you're grateful for in the job. And he said, there's not one thing in the job I'm grateful for. And he asked him, well, do they pay you? He said, well, yes. You can start being grateful for that. And every day start thinking about what in it that you can be grateful for. And he began to realize that not only they paid him, but he had, 2 or 3 weeks of vacation every year. He had medical expenses paid for. He had actually 1 or 2 people that he had good conversations with. They had educational reimbursement for him. And after a while, it changed his whole way of seeing that experience. And he went back and talked to the guy and he said, I tried what you did and I realized, man, how so much has changed as a result of that. And all those people, how they changed when I started doing this. Of course, they didn't change at all. They were the same. Something within him changed because he embodied something different in his life. I'm saying here today, when we throw ourselves open and check that lower ego at the door, check it constantly, and we operate from the perspective of a higher thinking and perception and a spiritual point of view, things begin to change in our life. They begin to change in our life. Now, when we start to get there, things that kind of get shook up. Change will go on. We're trying to move away from a conditioned way of being. But if we keep doing it, we'll be able to have that transformation take place. And we'll understand that when we get in tune with that, we'll have a new definition of success. Success has often been described by something outside of us, and there's nothing wrong with goals and achievement, but real success is something that changes within us. Real success when we begin to be in tune with a spiritual idea. Because real success happens when we make that idea our life. And in that is all that we need, the abundance. In that comes purpose. In that comes health and healing and vitality and vigor. In that becomes the fullness of life. The surface mind may be saying, hey, I don't understand this because I came to this place and might have been Unity or Spiritual Life Center, and we were told we can have it all. And then you look at me and say, you said that. Okay, wait a minute. Hold up. I didn't say that. What I'm really saying is that we're here to serve something greater, and then something bigger becomes into our life. So we check that out. And when we understand this truth, it changes into our experience. And when we're service to something that is a spiritual idea, a spiritual quality, we begin to get the fullness of life come into our experience. We begin to think that we have more than enough. We begin to realize that we're in tune with that which is really important. We begin to think that our needs indeed are being met, and something begins to happen. And we look around, we have more than enough, and it begins to keep coming. And every time we look around, there's another opportunity that comes forth. And we wake up in the morning and simply start singing that song. I want to thank you for letting me be myself again. When we get in tune with that presence, something begins to happen. See, I turn on you and let that then see who's awake and who's not. You know, when we get this new definition of success, of being in service to a spiritual idea, we get uplifted. And we may get a little nervous and say, you know, I got my treasure maps and my vision boards, and that's good. But those are stepping stones to surrendering to something greater. It prepares us to accept that which has already been given by the presence of God. And at some point, all of that yields to something even beyond what we can imagine, what our human mind can imagine. There's a good that's waiting for us. It's waiting to be part of our life. Because I always say, the real good, if we can imagine it, it ain't it. It's not really what Spirit has in store from us, because it's beyond what we can imagine. Anyway, you know, I think in this teaching we talk about the idea of making it practical. What can we do on a day-to-day basis to really make it practical? So we have one assignment. One assignment all day long. We have one assignment. We don't have a lot of assignments, just one. We keep our attention and think about God, God, God. Think about peace. Think about joy. We got to think about that all day long, no matter what circumstances come up. That may not be what we want. We know that behind that, there is something that's giving us a message that says there's more in us trying to come up. And when we start thinking about God, start speaking the words of God, acting in accordance with this energy of God. They're not our own thoughts from an ego perspective, but we have committed because we committed to this work and this attention. Our thoughts are established by the great law of life. And inspiration begins to happen. And our life begins to change. You know, I was watching an old, not old, maybe a cool year old episode of Oprah Winfrey's Soul Sunday. And she had on Gary Zukav. And she was interviewing Gary Zukav. And he said that, you know, we want to really set our spiritual intention every day. And when we begin to set a spiritual intention, things may be chosen for us that we may not have chosen on our own, from our own limited perspective, our own egos. It may not be what we think we want, but when we're in tune with God, it's what the higher self in us wants. You know, sometimes I remember I have this misguided notion, I thought I knew what I want. And one thing I knew I didn't want to be a minister. I didn't want to give up my weekends. I had my own plans. Fortunately, I didn't have my own way. Sometimes we don't have our own way. So when we think about God, those thoughts become our perceptions. They become our life. And then we begin to have inspiration, insight, revelations, transformations take place for all of us. And it will happen when we don't live by our lower voice, but begin to live by every word that comes out of the mouth of God, those qualities that we make part of our life. When we forgive someone that we know we don't feel like doing. When we practice seeing possibilities of good when it does not seem to be there. When we see the good in another person, when we know there's no such thing of good in that individual, we practice that. And then we begin to have our own transformation. Anyway, that's my interpretation of the metaphysical perspective of Jesus and the temptations. And so it is. So we let it be. Amen. You know, next week I'm going to talk about, you know the story of Job. Job, who was such a servant of the presence of God and had all these bad things happen to him. And so we're talking about, why is this happening to me? Why do good things happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? So we're going to look at that story to see if we can help explain that. So hopefully next week I'll have an answer. But right now I invite you to take your gifts, your love offerings, and really get into the consciousness of giving that reminds us that we can never outgive the presence of God. And whatever we give comes back to us in so many different ways. Not only does the giving support this community to help those who are transforming their lives, it helps those outside of us that are doing the same in their own way. And so let's hold that energy of divine giving as we say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
Y'all know this song. Don't act like y'all don't know this song. Oh, it's going to be accentuate the positive. You've got to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative and latch on to that affirmative, but don't mess with Mr. In Between. You've got to spread joy up to the maximum and bring gloom down to the minimum, and have faith or pandemonium liable to walk upon the scene. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the well, Noah in the ark. What did they do just when everything looked so dark? Man, they said you've got to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, and hang on to that affirmative, but don't mess with Mr. In Between. All right now, I'm gonna talk to you in tongues. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the well, Noah in that old ark. What did they do just when everything looked so dark? Man, they said we've got to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, and hang on to that affirmative, but don't mess with Mr. In Between. You gotta accent the positive, y'all, and get on rid of that negative and latch on to the affirmative, but don't you mess with Miss In Between. Y'all know what I'm doing. Got to spread joy up to the maximum and bring gloom down to the minimum, and have faith or pandemonium liable to walk up on the scene. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the well, Noah in that old ark. What did they do just when everything looked so dark? Man, they said you got to accentuate the positive and eliminate that negative, and hang on to that affirmative, but don't you mess with Mr. In Between. Oh, no, don't mess. Oh, child, I said don't mess. You better not mess. Don't mess with Mr. In Between. Don't mess with Mr. In Between, y'all.
All righty. And Rhonda and members of the Way Ministry coming forward with us as we bless the gifts, the tithes, the offerings, knowing we're going to bless the givers and receivers and the good that is here for all of us. And with that, let us join in and sing our peace song.
Me.